Good evening and welcome to The Breakdown with me, Toni Waterman. Here are the big topics we'll be following tonight. Blockchain, a buzzword the world over, but will it be a game changer for Bermuda's economy? The rock star of the insurance sector, Bermuda's own Brian Duperreault, says blockchain is promising, but the island should think about other ways to diversify the economy. And a walk on the wild side, foraging for food, the trendy new tour on island. We're going to get to that story in just a moment, but first, blockchain. By now, I am sure that you have heard of it, but do you know what it actually is? Gary Foster Skelton took to the streets of Hamilton for your take.
What is blockchain?
Blockchain, I heard about it. It's something to do with cryptocurrency.
Bitcoin and cryptocurrency and internet-based money, I'm thinking.
I understand it's a method of doing business. That's about as much as I know.
Blockchain is a form of ledgering transactions.
It allows for multiple people in different places to have access to the same set of information.
Sorry, what is blockchain?
What is blockchain?
I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to that question.
Blockchain? I have no idea.
I have no idea.
Never heard of it.
Oh, I have never heard of that before.
Absolutely no idea.
Well, I don't even know.
I don't really have a clue, but I'm interested in learning.
It's a ledger that can't be broken. People use for managing different transactions in a very controlled manner.
Data can be stored and shared between different partners, but obviously secured through secure means.
You go back and you verify using the current state of the block.
And I want to be a part, so look out for me.
All right, so it seems that some people have a firmer grasp on what blockchain is than others, but that's okay. That's what I'm here for, to help you. So what is blockchain? Well, as the name implies, blockchains are blocks of information chained together in chronological order. It's a permanent record of anything of value. So that could be your financial transactions, your medical history, your land titles. It's basically a database, but this is not your grandma's database, because back in grandma's day, transactions were recorded in a book, aka a ledger. Banks have ledgers, governments have ledgers, hospitals have ledgers. You get the point. Blockchain is a digital ledger, except it's not owned by any big organization. It is decentralized and distributed. Once this information goes into the blockchain, it is stored and updated across a network of computers. Your computer, my computer, grandma's computer, millions of public computers. That makes it really difficult for any one person to take down the network or to corrupt it. Once that information is verified, it's added to the blockchain. New information is added at the front end. Even if it's to change something, you can't go back and change what's in the blockchain. And that's because of something known as a hash code. It is a series of letters and numbers linking these blocks together. It's essentially a unique fingerprint. Now, if somebody did want to go back and maybe fudge a little of the information, even if it's just a single comma in a 5,000-page document, that hash code would change and it would alert people in the network. And because all of these blocks are chained together, one little change can, well, change everything in the network. So that's really important because it adds trust in the system. And that's important because blockchain has the potential to cut out the need for the middlemen, potentially. The bankers, the lawyers. That could save consumers like you and me a lot of money. That could save businesses a lot of time and money. And we could even see a privacy paradigm shift away from the large organizations and back to us, the people. Okay, now that we have the blockchain basics under our belt, what are the possibilities? What are the pitfalls? And what could it mean for Bermuda's economy? Well, to help us answer questions, I'm joined on set now by Stafford Lowe. He's the COO at Drum G. Also, Dennis Pitcher, who is a Bermudian tech entrepreneur and a columnist. Thank you both for joining us this evening. Stafford, I want to start off with you because what I just explained in that touchscreen sequence is a public blockchain example. There's also private blockchains, and that's kind of where your company specializes in. Give us an example, very briefly, of how this is working, how you guys are using this technology.
Thank you, Toni. So the thing to think about with blockchain is that it really is an enhancement to the internet. It's a way of connecting companies together. The magic of blockchain from an enterprise perspective is the ability to know that what you see on your screen is the same as what another person sees on their screen. So this is the opportunity for businesses to kind of create these multilateral agreements with each other and be able to come together to bundle value differently and with the result of being able to provide better customer service.
All right, so Dennis, I mean, you, in your columns that you write, seem to be a believer in this technology, but you think that it needs to be maybe balanced a bit more. So do you think that at this point in time that the reality is living up to the hype? Because in a lot of ways, this technology hasn't been exactly proven to its full potential.
We're very much in the discovery phase at this point. I mean, it's a new technology, and as with new technologies, we go through what's referred to as the Gartner hype cycle, where we can get very hyped up on the potential, as people don't really understand how it's going to happen yet. But as we put together the building blocks over time, we can realize that potential. We saw that with the e-commerce boom, where we had a massive hype bubble. But today, a lot of what we talked about back then has actually been achieved. It just took a lot longer than people originally expected. And that's what I think we're going to see with this new technology.
Yeah, it seems to always be the case when it comes to technology. It always takes a lot longer than people anticipate. At this point in time, Dennis, what do you see as some of the major pitfalls for blockchain?
I think it's mainly just looking at the right solution for the right problem. I mean, if you're a company that has internal systems that doesn't have a trust problem, it's not really the right application for it. It's really when you have multiple parties who don't necessarily trust, giving over control to a single entity, that you then need to have this kind of a solution. And there are many variations in how you can approach the solution, and it's understanding what the trade-offs are in which solution you approach it with.
So you talk about the trust issue, right? And right now, traditionally, it's bankers, it's lawyers that are these custodians of trust in a lot of these networks. With blockchain, where are the potential savings that companies are going to be able to see?
Well, the savings come from the fact that the reconciliation process is completely cut out. I mean, it's instantaneous, and so you don't have to go through that long process of checking that what you see is what I see. It's done automatically, but that doesn't mean that there isn't a role for the lawyers or for the regulators. And I think that the way that blockchain is going to be applied in the financial industry is going to be very carefully, and nothing is really going to change. That's the thing. People are still going to issue bonds. People are still going to trade equities, but it's just going to be the method of record keeping that changes, and it's just going to become a lot quicker and faster and easier to do business.
Do you agree with that, Dennis? Do you think that jobs potentially aren't going to be lost? They're just going to be repurposed?
It's a common fallacy with technology that jobs are instantly lost. I mean, we've had ATMs since the 1970s, but I can find a bank teller today. It's that we increase efficiencies. We now have online banking, we have telephone banking, we have many different innovations that have made it easier and cheaper to run a business, that if we had to stand in line for an hour every single day to do our basic banking, we just can't accomplish as much. So it's about reducing friction throughout business processes is what we're looking at achieving with this.
So it's about efficiency, which in a lot of times does mean a cost savings for companies. But is this for new companies trying to enter into the market? Does it actually lower the barriers to entry? Or is this just something for established companies that we're really going to see the cost savings?
Well, it certainly lowers the barrier to entry. One of the great advantages of blockchain is the fact that it's actually been built to be, or it's been designed to be very easy to build on and very cheap to build on. And that's why you see a lot of startups coming up, and they're able to create in a matter of months what has taken decades in the sort of the legacy world to put together. So I think that there will be new entrants into the market, and I think that that's valuable. But I think that doesn't mean that there's going to be mass wholesale disruption of the companies that we know and love. And I think that they're also going to get onto this, and they're just going to be able to connect themselves to themselves better, they're going to connect themselves to each other better, and they're going to ultimately be able to create a better experience for their customers.
What does Bermuda need to do to be most efficient, to really harness the power and the benefits of blockchain? How do they need to position themselves? How does the government, how does the country need to position themselves, Dennis?
We really need to work with the key players who are trying to drive innovation and make sure that we're getting the right people to come to the island, similar to what we did back with reinsurance in the early days. We created the right regulatory environment to give them the kind of protections to know that they could do their businesses and understand what the rules are. Because the big challenge is if you're operating a business without knowing what the rules are, you don't know how you get targeted later. And we need a level playing field that makes it easy for people.
I mean, we do have a lot of regulations that have cropped up in a very short amount of time on island that takes not just blockchain, but more fintech and ICOs and the cryptocurrencies into consideration. When it comes to the actual people, though, the people with the skills, the people who can educate the students that are up and coming in the school system, is that here?
So I think that one thing that Bermuda does need to do is find ways to teach the kids in the schools about this technology, because it's going to be so prevalent everywhere. When they've grown up and they're at working age. I think that companies like DrumG, companies like Consensus are very committed to education. They have academies to teach people how to write smart contracts and even tell them what smart contracts actually are. And I think that this is something that will happen over time. It's not things are happening quickly, but I think the changes that we will see blockchain create for us will happen over a decade. They won't happen over a year or 18 months.
So Dennis, if I'm just somebody walking down the street, maybe one of those people that we spoke to earlier who didn't know what it was, 5 years from now, when am I going to say that it's impacted my life? What's going to be the tangible effect?
I think it's going to reduce costs overall, and it's going to open new opportunities. We're still in the discovery phase to really understand what's possible, but 5 years from now, we're going to see areas of investment potential that previously were only accessible to large corporations become more accessible to small businesses and individuals. And I think more globalization is going to occur where people outside of the US banking system maybe have more access to some of the products and features that Americans have.
I mean, that's one of the arguments when it comes to blockchain, is that it's almost a very egalitarian type of system as opposed to software that's kind of owned by large corporations and they control it and they keep all the keys to the kingdom, so to speak. Do you think that that's actually the case, though? Because if there's public and private blockchains, is it just sort of more of the same?
No, I think it is different this time round. It's been designed to be different. The companies who are building the blockchains either have egalitarian ideals, or they're very realistic about what their customers will allow, and nobody wants to get locked into a single vendor anymore. That's the thing. So in my world, which is working with big financial institutions, there are a couple of big companies that everybody has to use, and they're kind of stuck with them. The idea now is that you've got a system which will allow companies to effectively create their own rules, create their own relationships, and not have to be stuck with a single technology choice.
All right, well, obviously a lot of things to look forward to. Thank you both for joining me this evening. Stafford Lowe, COO at DrumG, and also Dennis Pitcher, Bermudian tech entrepreneur. We're going to leave it there for now, but we're going to head off for a quick break. But when we get back, a sit down with Bermuda's insurance rock star, Brian Duperreault. He says blockchain is promising, but he's not convinced it's the most important emerging technology for the insurance sector. That interview after the break. Stay with us.
New Toyota Rush, Bermuda's biggest SUV with 7 seats. There's always plenty of room. Available at Bermuda Motors.
From happy beginnings and life choices that we make along the way,
Colonial protects your lifestyle with the best insurance cover at the best possible price.
Health insurance with far-reaching benefits.
Family protection and long-term financial plans.
Business insurance and generous employee benefits.
For happy beginnings to happy ever after, visit CGIGroup.com.
Colonial, where people come first.
Welcome back to The Breakdown. Our big story tonight, blockchain. We're going to get back to that in just a minute. But first, let's take a look at some other stories making headlines tonight. Time now for the Quick Take. Let's circle back to our main topic tonight, blockchain. You now know how it works, how businesses are using the technology, and some of the potential pitfalls. So let's talk about the insurance sector. It's a main pillar of Bermuda's economy, and fans say that blockchain could deliver millions of dollars in savings to the industry. I sat down with hometown insurance guru Brian Duperreault, who heads up AIG, and we started off by talking about what blockchain could or could not mean for the economy.
I can't tell you whether blockchain has legs. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I think you can never be sure. I do think, we as a country need to have a more balanced economy, between what we do in the insurance industry and what's happening in tourism, et cetera. And having other sources of revenue and other economic activities makes all the sense in the world.
Right.
I mean, we're a little place. Our natural resources are our people. And so how do we utilize the place we're in and the people we have to create economic, economic wealth and GDP and growth? So I think, experimenting with blockchain, I think that makes all the sense in the world. We should look at some other things too, I guess. Huh?
What do you think they should be looking at?
Well, I think you got to play to your strengths. You got to play to your strengths. So what are your strengths? And, I think we are a place where we have rule of law. It's proximity, great infrastructure. So, other financial activity might make some sense. Not going to give you any specifics, but might make some sense.
What is AIG's strategy when it comes to blockchain at this point?
We're experimenting with it now. We've done something using IBM as a partner. I think other companies, in our industry are doing the same thing. We do a lot of coverages around ocean marine, we call it, trade, where there's contracts that go from hand to hand, how you keep track of all that. It gets to be kind of inefficient. And so if you could find a way where there's contract certainty, what it is, it speeds up the whole process. So that's blockchain. So in our case, we would look at it in that particular area. There should be a frequency of activity in order for you to use a blockchain. If you have an occasional contract that's quite complicated with lots of wording, it's like overkill. Blockchain doesn't really help you.
Do you see blockchain as being able to solve some of the other longer term issues for the insurance industry when it comes to stuff like compliance issues? We have GDPR. In Europe, we have PIPA coming in here in Bermuda. You also have fraud issues. The FBI says $40 billion a year in insurance fraud in the United States alone. Could this technology help solve some of those
problems? Yeah, again, go back to what I said is that, as I understand it, and I'm no expert, it really fits in a more frequency of activity venue. So the insurance industry is quite diverse, and we do, there are places in the world where you have lots of contracts and, contracts with individuals, who are buying your insurance. And I'm sure there are places that make sense there. In Bermuda, We don't do that. Our contracts are B2B, business to business, not to personal, not to a consumer. They're quite large, they're complicated, and so I'm not sure that it's the solution to those kinds of issues. Now, it may, and it could very well make sense, as you said, in terms of compliance with requirements that we have from different governments. I'm more worried about other kinds of technology.
Yeah, I want to talk about that. Do you think that blockchain is the biggest game changer in the insurance industry, or is there different technology that's coming out right now that could be more revolutionary?
I think data science and algorithmic approaches to decision making, discovery of information, how we go about just finding out what's out there and how do we sift through it and come up with usable information. To me, that's the real issue in our business. So we've done this for a long time as an industry. So there's certain ways that we go about gathering the data, making an analysis, coming to a conclusion. The world has moved so rapidly. There's so much more data out there. Data that we never looked at. Data that actually might give us a better answer to the question than the ones we're using. So how you sort all this myriad of information out, how do you distill it? And how do you draw conclusions from it? That's the whole thing with artificial intelligence, machine learning, data science. It's all wrapped in that. And to me, that to me is the key to the future of the insurance industry. Making better decisions with better data.
All right, we are going to have more of that interview with Brian Duperreault in the coming weeks. We talked about ILS and infrastructure investment on islands, so do make sure to join us for that. All right, so we've heard from businesses, IT experts, the insurance sector. What about government? Fintech is clearly a priority for the PLP and is seen as a way to diversify the economy, create jobs, and boost GDP. High-ranking officials want to get that message out that Bermuda is the place to be if you're in the fintech space. Minister for National Security Wayne Keynes has been spearheading that effort, and he gave us his take.
I think the biggest challenges are the banking issues. When one thinks about what we're trying to do in the fintech space, it is put together, whether it's through ICOs, whether it's through digital asset or exchanges. The biggest question that everybody has is, how do we set up a bank account? Are we going to be able to change crypto into fiat? And so the biggest challenge that we believe that we need to work on is actually the banking issue. I think it's a job creator. So we have to think of this a new pillar in our economy. And so when we talk about cybersecurity, when we talk about data recovery, or whether we're talking about actually digital asset exchanges, we believe that this is an opportunity for us to bring jobs to Bermuda. The reality of it is that this is a new industry, and whether it's through education, whether it's through jobs, we believe that this is an opportunity for us to look under some other rocks to try to create some new industry for Bermuda. People want to be in a market that is secure. They want to make sure their assets are protected from bad actors. And so what we're saying into the world is a space that, listen, Bermuda, we have a history of regulating things and doing it well. We're going to be in this space, but we're going to make sure the AML, anti-money laundering, and KYC, know your customer, we're going to make sure that that is in depth, that it's robust, but it's still an environment that is conducive for doing business. The beauty about legislation generally is that it is they are breathing instruments, they're breathing documents, and you can make amendments or addendums to any legislation. We believe the fintech legislation we'll have to constantly be trying to update it and to make sure that it's indeed fit for purpose. I don't believe there's a danger. People oftentimes confuse acting quickly for not making sure that things are done efficiently. I believe that we have acted in a robust fashion, but it was always done in consultation with consultants, with the stakeholders in the community, and with the leading lawyers in the private sector and at the Attorney General's chambers and other government lawyers.
Time now for a break, but when we get back, foraging for food, the trendy new chore attracting mixologists and textile lovers to Bermuda.
Win a trip or two to the 2019 Trinidad Carnival. When you purchase a car from Bermuda Motors, your name will be entered into a draw for a chance to win an all-expenses-paid trip for two, including flights, accommodation, and tickets to the Trinidad Carnival. Visit Bermuda Motors on Church Street or bermudamotors.bm.
Ever wondered what smart health insurance feels like?
Colonial's 24/7 worldwide health insurance does most of the thinking for you.
1,500 CGI health claims are settled daily.
60% of claims settled automatically.
You can access your health plan almost anywhere, anytime.
And have smart wellness with online data tracking.
And more provider choices for you and the people who matter most.
Premier Health is smart health insurance, and it feels good.
Colonial, where people come first.
Welcome back to the program. Well, Bermuda has a long history of innovation and ingenuity, and over the next 13 weeks, we're going to explore the island's entrepreneurial spirit, get an inside look at some of the great ventures helping to promote tourism to the island. In this week's Bright Ideas segment, I take a walk on Bermuda's wild side.
Cooper's Island Nature Reserve. Before we go into our wild edible herbal tour, I would first like to just share with you a blowing the conch shell.
Doreen Williams-James is a lifelong forager, taught as a child to spot the wild herbs, fruits, and plants burgeoning throughout Bermuda.
Here you go.
Wow, that is much louder than I thought it would be. And all of the wild herbs and plants are on notice that we are coming to find them. Yeah. 3 years ago, Doreen decided to share her foraging know-how and started the Wild Herbs and Plants of Bermuda tour.
We walk past food all the time to go buy food. To me, that makes no sense.
Locations depend on what's in season. Right now, Cooper's Island is flush with one of her favorites, the spice leaf.
Now, this plant is very good for anxiety, depression, and I want you to smell that. Isn't that amazing?
It smells like Christmas almost.
Yes.
For Doreen, foraging is about food and healing. I wish you could smell that. Although she's quick to point out that on the medicinal side, she only speaks from personal experience and that of her friends.
So we're coming up on the prickly pear. They grow wild all around the island.
They look pretty dangerous.
They are dangerous. The prickly pear is very good for diabetes. It lowers the glucose level. Also increases your immune system.
Look at the color of that. It's like a beet almost. The tour has been a hit with both tourists and locals and has attracted some unique visitors, including a group of American mixologists.
So we have two amazing plants that are growing here.
That are growing here?
Yes.
Even at the rocky shoreline, there's food to be found.
Now here we have the glasswort, also known as samphire. If you taste it, it tastes very much like the ocean.
So I can taste it?
Yep, go ahead and taste it. Now they also serve this in high-end restaurants all around the world. I like to saute it with onions, garlic, and lemon juice and a little bit of olive oil.
It's really good.
It is.
It tastes almost like a seaweed.
Yes, yes.
But much crunchier. Wow. Give a girl some glasswort and she eats for a day. Teach a girl to forage and she can be one with nature for a lifetime. Really good. All right, one thing to remember when you guys go out foraging, though, do not take the plants by the root. We want them to regenerate so there's enough food for all of us. All right, that's going to do it for this very first edition of The Breakdown. Thank you very much for joining me. I'd love to hear from you. My email address right here down below. Shoot me an email, and you can always find me on Twitter for your latest news updates. My handle is Toni Waterman _. Next week, we're going to take a look at Bermuda 10 years on from the financial crisis. I hope you're going to join me then. Take care.